Hello everybody, my name is Saurabh Chatterjee from CR Photography. My dream is to make every camera owner a great photographer. In this session, we are going to talk about why shoot in the RAW file format. And the first reason why you should shoot in the RAW file format is the higher dynamic range. Now, if you are shooting in the RAW file format, you will get a much wider dynamic range. Now, if you are not sure what is dynamic range, you can look through my video on dynamic range, which will give you a very good idea. It's basically the details that you get in the highlights and in the shadow areas. The second reason is more colors. So if you are shooting in the RAW file format, you will definitely get a lot more colors compared to shooting in the JPG file format. So we will see that when we actually process the picture. The third thing is the white balance. Now when you're shooting in the RAW file format, the camera captures the whole range of white balance. Now people say that you should have the right white balance in the camera. So if I'm doing a studio shoot where everything is within my control, it's absolutely okay to change the white balance to the correct value. Now if I'm shooting a wedding, that can become very tricky. Every place has a different color. So there are some blue bulbs, yellow light, white light, so all different kinds of light. Now in that case, it is very difficult to keep changing the white balance with every shot that you take. Now if you shoot in the RAW file format, you will be able to change it later. The other good thing about shooting in the RAW file format is it is indestructible. Even if you want to, you cannot modify that RAW file. So all the changes that you're going to do has to be stored in an external file like a JPEG file or an XMP file. The good thing about this is I can go back to the pictures that I have taken 15 years back and I can work on them in a whole different way. And as you know, the softwares like Lightroom or Photoshop are getting better with every new version. So they are able to handle the same raw data in a much better way. So sometimes I go back to my pictures, old pictures, and bring it into the new Lightroom and then work on them and get much better renditions. So the disadvantage of shooting in the RAW file format is it occupies more space. Memory is very cheap, so you can buy more memories. You definitely need a faster computer to work on a RAW file compared to a JPEG file. You need some software to edit. You need Lightroom or Photoshop or any other software that can handle the raw data. And it's an additional step in your workflow. So if you have a JPEG, you can quickly work on it and you can share it on Facebook or Instagram. Now when you have a RAW file format, you have to bring the pictures into Lightroom and then work on it. The thing you might like to know about the RAW file format is every manufacturer has its own RAW file format. For example, Canon calls it CR2 or CR3. Sony calls it ARW, Nikon calls it NEF, but that actually does not make a difference. Now Adobe has come out with a format called the DNG, that's a digital negative. And Adobe is trying to convince all the camera companies to adopt the DNG file format, but with very little success. Now let us go into Lightroom and see, does it make a difference shooting in the RAW file or in the JPEG file? So now we are in Lightroom and I'm going to work on these pictures and show you how it is different when you process the same picture in RAW and in the JPEG file format. Now you see here I have done some changes to the picture. I have basically adjusted the exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, textures, clarity, so all these basic adjustments, and I copy it and I apply it to the same picture. Okay, now you can see the difference in how these pictures look. So when I zoom in, you will be able to see that there is so much of difference in the pictures. You see this picture looks little over sharpened while this picture looks the way it is. Also the rendition, the details, the tones is so different when you have the same picture in the RAW and the JPEG file format. You also see that this picture definitely looks more noisy compared to the RAW file format picture. Now another thing, remember I was talking about the white balance. Now you see in this picture, you see I could change the white balance because the camera captured the whole range of white balance. I could change the white balance to my desired value, but here we don't have any of this white balance data. So here it is either going to plus or minus. So this is artificially we are controlling the white balance, and definitely the colors will be very different. Now this is the second picture I have chosen. You see this is a RAW file and this is a JPEG file. Let us compare these two pictures. So I'm going to zoom in. So though the two pictures look very similar, I'm going to zoom in and see for the details. So you can very easily see that this picture is a lot more noisy compared to this one. Also the colors I feel is better in this one compared to the previous one. Now see here, you see the reds here and see the reds here. So you can see so much of difference. This looks like little blackish and this looks close to the natural colors. Let us see the third picture. Now here you can really see a lot of difference. So you can very easily make out which is in the JPEG file format and which is in the RAW file. So here you see the colors look so artificial. Here you see I have got very close to the way I could see it, but here you see this looks little artificial. You see the color, you see this looks little bluish. So though I added the same things here, it looks so different. Now let me go to the next picture and show you. Now here you can see the same picture processed in JPEG and in the raw file format. So in the raw I was able to get a lot more details compared to the JPEG file format. So you can see the difference. So how much more noisier this JPEG file looks compared to the raw file. Now this is the last picture we are going to see. Now when you see these two pictures, they look quite similar, not much difference. But when I zoom in to the face, you can see I can see a lot more details here compared to this one. Okay, so let me zoom in further. So see how these two pictures look. So when I zoom into 400%, you see all the details of this part is gone, while in this picture all the details are retained. I hope this is convincing enough for you to start shooting in the raw file format. Now if you are shooting in the raw file format, you must know how to post process your pictures. You can use a software like Lightroom or Photoshop or Affinity, but you have to know how to do it. And a lot of people also ask me, should I shoot in only raw or should I shoot in raw plus JPEG? Now for me, the JPEG file that you are creating is useless. Anyways, I'm just going to work on the raw file and process this picture, cook it properly, and then only I'm going to export it. So that JPEG file is absolutely useless for me. A lot of people do it for the sake of quickly opening the pictures and see them, and then they select the pictures that they want to process in Lightroom. But for me, I have a technique where I can open the raw files very quickly in Lightroom. I hope this session is convincing enough for you to start shooting in the raw file format. If you like the contents of this channel, do subscribe and share it with your friends. Bye bye.